Welcome back to our journey through the Gospel of John. In our last study, we saw the intense confrontation in John 8, where religious leaders became so enraged with Jesus that they literally picked up stones to kill him. The chapter ended with Jesus hiding and leaving the temple area. Today, we're diving into John 9, and as Jesus and his disciples are leaving that tense situation, they encounter a man who will become the center of one of the most profound healing miracles and theological discussions in all of Scripture. Let's start by reading verses 1 and 2. As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Notice something crucial about this question. The disciples didn't ask if sin caused this blindness. They assumed it did. Their only question was, who sinned? This reveals a common but flawed way of thinking that hasn't disappeared from our world today. When we face difficulties, physical, emotional, financial, or spiritual, how often do we immediately start searching through our past, asking, what did I do to deserve this? We start confessing sins we're not even sure we committed, desperately trying to find the direct cause. But Jesus brings a radical correction in verse 3. It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. Now let's be clear about what Jesus is not saying. He's not claiming this man or his parents never sinned. Scripture tells us all have sinned and fall short of God's glory. He's also not saying sin played no role in this blindness at all. We live in a broken, fallen world, and that brokenness touches all of us in various ways. What Jesus is saying is that there was no direct act of sin by this man or his parents that caused this specific condition. Instead, God allowed the circumstance so his works might be displayed. This raises a crucial distinction we must understand. There's a difference between God allowing something to happen and God directly causing something to happen. God dwells outside of time. He created time itself. Because of his foreknowledge, he knows how things will unfold. But that doesn't mean he directly causes every circumstance. Think of how a parent walking behind a toddler, taking their first steps. The parent knows the child will likely fall, so they position their hands to catch them. The parent's foreknowledge didn't cause the fall. They were simply prepared for what they knew would happen. In verses 4 and 5, Jesus adds urgency to his encounter. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming, when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Jesus used day and night to describe the limited time of his earthly ministry. But here's what's remarkable. He passed that responsibility to us. In Matthew 5, Jesus told his followers, You are the light of the world. This is our day. While we're still breathing, still here, we have work to do as carriers of God's light. Now comes the unusual part of this miracle. Verse 6 tells us, Jesus spit on the ground, made mud, and anointed the man's eyes with it, then told him to wash in the pool of Siloam. Why mud? Jesus could have healed him with just a word. We know nothing is impossible with God. The mud served as what we call a touch point of faith, a physical action that gives faith something concrete to grasp onto. Remember the woman with the bleeding condition who said, If I can just touch the hem of his garment, I know I'll be healed. There was nothing supernatural about Jesus' clothing. It was her touch point of faith. God honors faith, however it's expressed, even in ways that might seem unusual to us. The man obeyed, went to Siloam, which means sent, washed, and returned seeing. Immediately, his neighbors were confused. Some recognized him as the beggar, others weren't sure. But the man kept declaring, I am the man. When questioned about how this happened, his testimony was simple. The man called Jesus made mud and anointed my eyes and said to me, Go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed and received my sight. This first part of John 9 challenges us on our assumptions about suffering and God's sovereignty. Not every difficulty in our lives stems from direct sin, but God can use every circumstance, even our brokenness, to display His works and glory. As we carry the light of Christ in this world, we call to work while it's still day, trusting that God can use even the most challenging circumstances for His purposes. In our next study, we'll see how the religious leaders responded to this miracle and discover the powerful testimony of a man whose simple faith stood against the religious intimidation.